What are we discussing on today's The Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Is it time for the D-backs to explore their closing options and why the rotation is the biggest wild card for the D-backs second half of the season?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about Paul Sewald and if it's time for a new closer, the hottest D-backs from July as we enter the next series against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and why the rotation is the biggest wild card in the second half of the season. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners. Sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast and discuss if the D-backs need a new closer, because we watched that finale against the Washington Nationals. D-backs were able to get the cherry on top to a perfect month of July. They did not lose one series the whole month. Now, did they win every series? No, because they split one series against the Braves, but they did not lose any series the whole month. The offense looked fantastic. For the most part, the pitching was fine. Of course, there was a couple guys who were a little shaky, as we'll talk about on this podcast, but it was a very good month of July baseball for the D-backs, and they finished it off with just their second sweep of the year against the Washington Nationals. So D-backs are feeling good. They even own a wild card spot now, right? Kind of crazy. We've talked about how the D-backs keep playing good baseball, but hasn't mattered. No, D-backs now currently the owners of the third wild card spot at the time of me recording this podcast. And today's going to be Thursday. D-backs don't play today. The Mets don't play today. Do the Padres? No, the Padres don't play today either. So D-backs will go into Friday as well as the holders of the third wild card spot. Something we've been waiting for so long for the D-backs to do. They've been playing great baseball all month long, but so have the other NL teams. So it's been a long road for the D-backs to get back to this point. But currently, if the season ended today, the D-backs would be in the postseason, and it feels so good to say. Last night's game, offense once again continued to cook. They looked good all series against the Nationals, coming off that game number 2 where every player in their lineup had a hit. Even two dudes who pinch hit had a hit, where they continued that with the finale where, again, almost every dude had a hit except for Pavin Smith. He was the only dude in the lineup who did not get a hit, and he even still got an RBI. So everyone was at least productive for the D-backs in the finale, except really for one guy that really struggled for the D-backs, and he has been struggling the entire month of July, and that is the crux of this conversation we're about to have. Is it time for the D-backs to change their closer? Is it time to move on from Paul Sewald? If you're the D-backs, that doesn't mean you have to DFA him, but is it time for a switch? Is it time to put someone else in that closing role? Because right now, Paul Sewald is not getting it done. And when you think about this D-backs team, how they've been playing as a unit, the rotation, the bullpen, the lineup, like all of it's been fine, but Paul Sewald in the back end has really held this bullpen back this month. And there was a couple games where you could look at where the D-backs could have had an even better month of July, right? The Dodgers, the Padres, if Paul Sewald didn't blow a couple of those games. And so right now, the conversation surrounding the D-backs, the player struggling the most right now for Arizona is a Paul Sewald. And we know Torey Lovullo, he loves commitment to his guys, and at times it works out, right? We were really upset with how long he stayed committed to the Jace Petersons and even the Pavin Smiths last year, and guys who we know just aren't producers. Sometimes Torey Lovullo has stuck with them so much. and stayed committed to them for way too long. And even this season, right? How many D-backs fans, I know I was one of them, that said Eugenio Suarez needs to be a DFA'd. Eugenio Suarez needs to be traded. Like anything, play Blaze Alexander over him. Just use Eugenio as a platoon guy. Like we were begging for Torey Lovello to stop playing Eugenio so much. Torey never stopped, and then Eugenio went on to have the best month of July of maybe any MLB player of this month. And so sometimes being committed to a player works. And right now, Paul Sewald is getting that commitment from Torey Lovello, and I'm not sure how long that commitment should be. Maybe after the finale against the Nationals, maybe that was the last time we saw Paul Sewald as a closer. Gambo kind of hinted on it, but with Torey Lovello, you just never know. Right now, it feels like the entire D-backs fan base is against Paul Sewald, and you can see why when looking at his numbers for the month of July. He was absolutely crushed this month. He was really good prior to July. I want to first say that prior to July, Paul Sewald was killing it. 16.2 innings pitched, 1 earned run, and he had converted 11 saves. Like he was fantastic prior to July at a sub 1 ERA. Like he was absolutely elite, sub .5 whip. Like the numbers were insane that Paul Sewald was putting up. Basically a strikeout for every innings pitched. Like he was elite prior to July. But then you look at his numbers this month. He's been horrendous. 12 earned runs over 10 innings pitched. Is a 10.8 ERA, multiple blown games. Paul Sewald has been getting crushed, and the issue is he throws that fastball, it rises right up to the middle of the plate, and it just sits there, and opposing batters are just crushing it. It's like the kind of perfect pitch you see when you play MLB The Show. Just that 90-mile-an-hour fastball that just rises right up to the upper part of the strike zone. That just like the perfect home run spot. Like you can see these opposing batters teeing off against Paul Sewald and some of these at-bats. And that's the biggest question that maybe the D-backs have to answer right now. Is it time for a Paul Sewald change? Is it time for a new closer? I unfortunately think the answer is yes. I love what Paul Sewald brought to the D-backs last year. We needed him at the deadline. The D-backs hadn't had a closer for so long. Ever since I took over this podcast in 2020, I think closing games has been the biggest issue for the D-backs. And getting Paul Sewald last year felt like waking up on Christmas morning. It felt like me waking up on Christmas morning. I'll make the story personal. When I woke up on Christmas morning 12 years ago, how old am I now? 26? So maybe 12 years ago was I? No, maybe longer than that. Maybe like 14 years ago, waking up Christmas morning and seeing a "we" under the Christmas tree. That nothing made me more happy as a kid than waking up and seeing a "we." And for Paul Sewald, trade deadline, nothing made me happy as a D-backs fan than to finally see, oh my God, the D-backs got a closer. It was like when I got a "we." It was like finally we're going to have a good time. And Sewald was great the second half of last year. Maybe in the regular season, it was a little bit more up and down, but in the postseason, as we know, up until that first game of the World Series against the Rangers, he was nails, no earned runs, and he was a major critical piece as to why the D-backs got to the World Series. And for most of this season prior to July, same thing with Paul Sewald. We were begging for him to come back. He was hurt at the beginning of the year. Remember how bad our closing situation was early on with Kevin Ginkel struggling, and we couldn't really find a guy to replace Paul Sewald. Sewald came back, immediately started dominating. And now he's been bad in the month of July, and so it's hard with Paul Sewald, right? We've seen him be so good for the D-backs. We've waited so long for a good closer, and then he has a 3-week, 4-week bad stretch with the team, and now everyone's off the Sewald train. Everyone's off the Sewald bandwagon. And unfortunately, I think it's the right decision because unless Sewald can start throwing harder, add a little bit more movement to that fastball, and stop keeping it upper middle part of the zone, there's no reason why he should be the closer right now for the D-backs. There's too many quality options in the back end of the bullpen for the D-backs for Torey Lovello to keep going to Sewald in the ninth inning. Think about your options if you're the D-backs. You got Ryan Thompson, you got Justin Martinez, you got Kevin Ginkel, you got AJ Puck, you got Dylan Floro. Floro and Puck have been closers in the past. Maybe not like 40 save guys, but Puck has a season with 15 saves. Floro has a couple seasons with double-digit saves. Like both of those guys have been in closing situations. Ginkle has done it for the D-backs. Martinez has the arsenal to do it. Ryan Thompson's elite in high leverage moments. Like, the D-backs have 5 guys that are quality options to be your everyday closer. Or you know what? I'm also not mad if the D-backs took it game by game of who's going to be the closer in the ninth inning, because I think you could rotate all those guys through the ninth inning to be the closer for the D-backs. But the one guy I wouldn't do that with right now is a Paul Sewald. What I would do with Paul Sewald is give him that Kevin Ginkle treatment that we saw Lavello do earlier in the year, where Ginkle was the closer for the D-backs when Sewald was out. He was struggling in that ninth inning role. So what did Lavello do? He said, Ginkle, let's reset. Let's build your confidence back up. Let's put you in some lower leverage moments. Let's put you out there in the fifth, the sixth inning, and then all of a sudden the seventh inning, then all of a sudden the eighth inning. And he just worked his way up through leverage situations, low, medium, high, and you built his confidence up. I think that's what we need right now at Paul Sewald. If I'm doing a power ranking of the relievers I trust in this D-back bullpen, like, dead last is either probably a Mantiply or Paul Sewald, and Sewald is probably behind a Joe Mantiply right now, because at least Mantiply, I feel good about him against a lefty. Sewald, I don't know if I feel good about him against anybody right now. So for the D-backs, a team with such high aspirations, a team that's playing such good baseball right now, I think they have to make a change at the closing situation. We all love Paul Sewald, but I think it's time for a new closer. Now we'll talk about the hottest D-backs, not the Paul Sewalds. We'll talk about the hottest D-backs from July as we preview the next series against the Pittsburgh Pirates in segment number 2. But hey, if you're looking for supplies, I suggest Supply House, because get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouses.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And also, I want to talk to you guys about Game Time, because if you're looking to buy some tickets, then of course the best place you want to gonna go is Game Time, because Game Time is the best place for last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy theater, and more. Flash deals save you even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals save you even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats. Toggle all-in pricing on to show you the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can even get a panoramic view of your seat before you buy. No surprises on Game Time, whether it's the all-in price, whether it's the view from your seat. You get to experience it all with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's preview the next series against the Pittsburgh Pirates by talking about the hottest D-backs players from the month of July as we enter the month of August, and we pray these players can keep it going, because the first guy I want to talk about is the star of the Arizona Diamondbacks, the face of the franchise, arguably. Probably not this season, but I think you would have definitely said it last year, Corbin Carroll, because we're finally getting some signs of life from Corbin Carroll, and it feels good to see Corbin Carroll finally starting to come alive just a little bit and make an impact for this team offensively. We've been waiting all season long for it to happen. He has been so bad this year, and July wasn't exactly elite, But from what we saw the first couple of months of the season, July was very kind to Corbin Carroll. Did he still bat 221 in the month of July? Yes. But overall, OPS over 800. He had a 512 slugging in the month of July. Absolutely showed some power this month, which is so critical because the D-backs outfield right now hasn't shown a ton of power this season, and Corbin Carroll finally start to tap into the power department once again is super important for the D-backs as they now add another offensive element to this lineup. Carroll had a 124 WRC plus in the month of July, which means he was 24 points above average. 100 is considered average. He was considered 24 points above average. And even with that being said, that was still eighth on this D-backs team. That's how good this team was in the month of July. Like 124 WRC plus. Typically, that's not too bad for a player. You actually don't mind that over the course of a full season. A 124, like that's fine. Like right now, if you actually looked at the course of a full season, guys who are putting up a 124 or just around that, like Christian Walker, WRC plus right now, 125. So basically, Corbin Carroll played the entire month offensively like he was Christian Walker from a WRC plus perspective. Like that tells you how, you know, quality and at least good Corbin Carroll was this past month. He at least played to a Christian Walker level, and we've considered Christian Walker the best first baseman in the NL, arguably this season, definitely an all-star level first baseman. And so Corbin Carroll, you can say, played like an all-star level first baseman, I guess, in the month of July. He had 6 home runs this month, as we talk about the power that he finally started to tap into a little bit this month. And he also had 6 stolen bases. We know the speed is always going to be there for Corbin Carroll, but I think the slugging is the biggest thing. Also led the team in runs scored this month. Like, I love the fact that we finally start to see some signs of life from Corbin Carroll because, of course, we know he's the most dynamic athlete we have. And if we don't get him going, uh, it's tough to see the D-backs winning a World Series with Corbin Carroll not being a quality player. How about another guy, Jake the Rake McCarthy, a guy that I've always said he's been one of my favorite players on this team. Love Jake the Rake. We're going to have conversations in the future, right? When we have a Josh Bell, when a Christian Walker gets back. Like, if we keep Josh Bell, one of these guys has to go. And I've been petitioning not Jake McCarthy. I'm team Jake McCarthy over Alec Thomas if we ever have to make that decision because I just like Jake McCarthy overall. I think he's a quality baseball player. Maybe defensively is not good as Alec Thomas, but overall, I think he's just a better player. He's not great at anything except maybe speed, but just solid contact ability. And he's doing good against lefties this season. Like, I just trust him at the plate to do something positive, whether it's a bunt for a single or running it out for a single, or just punching it to left or right field. Like, he doesn't do a lot, but he does just enough. And this month, he was just cranking it at the plate with base hit after base hit. And again, if you go by WRC plus, Jake McCarthy 152 this month. He had a 345 average this month. He had a 517 slugging. The thing with Jake McCarthy, we always say he has no power, right? Well, 517 slugging. How does Jake McCarthy get there with no power? Well, because he had 4 triples in the month of July in only 58 at bats with a couple doubles as well. So you don't need home runs to provide power. Jake McCarthy was the triple machine in the month of July. And with the speed he possesses, I love seeing Jake McCarthy at the top of the lineup. Right now, if you're going to put a lefty at the top of the lineup, it should probably be Jake McCarthy over Corbin Carroll. Like, I didn't mind the lineup the other day when it was like Jake McCarthy batting second against the lefty on the mound. And he actually came through in that game in a big way as well. So Jake McCarthy, want to see more of him going forward because he's been so good for the D-backs. Gabriel Moreno, he's been on fire in the month of July for the D-backs. 329 average, over 400 OBP with over 400 slugging as well for like a 860 OPS in the month of July. He's been crushing it. His walk rate in the month of July higher than his strikeout rate, which just tells you how locked in Gabriel has been. And I love seeing him bat number 2. As we've talked about on a previous pod, when you look at the numbers, you can actually look at splits on Baseball Reference where if a guy's batting first, where his number is batting first, batting second, batting third. The numbers tell you when Moreno's batting second for the D-backs, he is putting up MVP level numbers. He looks like a superstar when he's batting second. So love Torey Lovullo doing that. And then, of course, the best position player from July, Eugenio Suarez, crushed it. We won't even have to talk about him that much because we've talked about him so much on this podcast in July. But 333 average, 398 OBP, and the big number, 733 slugging for Eugenio Suarez this month. Insane. He had 10 home runs. He had 6 doubles, which was also tied for the team lead with a Gabriel Moreno. And then also his WRC plus 206. 100 is considered average. So what is a 206 considered then? Eugenio was insane this month, and do have to give props to Torey Lovullo for sticking with his guy through the struggles. Now, the other area that was surprisingly really good for the D-backs in the month of July that you wouldn't think of because of Paul Sewald struggles, but the bullpen in the month of July, very nice. A 3.4 ERA. Sewald allowed 12 of the 38 earned runs in the month of July. The other 12 guys only allowed 26 earned runs. That means basically 2 earned runs a guy for the whole month. Elite stuff. You go up and down the relievers that produced for the D-backs this past month, and it was basically everyone outside of Paul Sewald was pretty good. Martinez struggled a little bit, 4.02 ERA in the month of July, but he also had the most innings pitched. So I'm not too worried with a J Mart. I think he'll be fine going forward. But Ginkel, Jarvis, Ryan Thompson all had sub 2 ERAs a month of July. Now we got AJ Puck in the building. Now we got Floro back. I really like the way this D-backs bullpen is set up. I think it's very strong for this final stretch of the season for Arizona. And then the final guy I want to talk about from the month of July, Ryan Nelson, right? The D-backs will face Paul Skeens in the finale against the Pirates, and we know Paul Skeens absolutely nasty. He has a chance as a rookie, not even starting day one, to potentially win the NL Cy Young Award because that's how nasty he's been. But he will have to face off against arguably the best D-backs pitcher from the month of July in a Ryan Nelson who just was fantastic. And you have never expected it because of the struggles we've seen from Ryan Nelson. He has never put together a stretch of dominance like this before, but 32 innings pitched in the month of July, 5 starts. He even had 5 innings out the pen as well. So if you look at his numbers, just as a starter for the month of July, over 5 starts, 2.51 ERA, most innings pitched this month in the rotation, 30 strikeouts as well, led the team as well in that category. He has been fantastic for the D-backs this month. Love the development of Ryan Nelson, and he will be going against Paul Skeens in the finale as the D-backs try to keep up their streak of not losing a series. The last series the D-backs lost was against the Minnesota Twins, June 27th. That was the last series they lost. They haven't lost one since then. So we'll see how long the D-backs can keep it going as they face off the Pittsburgh Pirates next. But now I want to talk to you guys about why the rotation is the biggest wild card for this D-backs team in the second half of the season. But if you're feeling dehydrated, then I suggest Liquid IV because when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non GMO, vegan, gluten free, dairy free, and soy free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration and Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. I've been drinking mine every single day. Listen, guys, I'm going to be back in Arizona soon. It's going to be hot. It's going to be 115. So best believe I'm going to be having sticks of Liquid IV in my pocket as I walk around the city, and especially maybe not in the stadium at Chase Field because it is in a roof. But walking back to my car, I'm throwing a stick in my water before I get back because it gets sweaty. So please Use the promo code. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss why the rotation is key to this D-backs team in the second half of the season. Because as you can currently see, and as we laid out, this lineup is cooking for the D-backs, right? We just went through it, how everyone is phenomenal. Eugenio, Marte, Jock, Jake McCarthy, Gabriel, Christian Walker, even a Jose Herrera and Corbin Carroll. All those guys I just named over 100 WRC plus in the month of July. Those guys are cooking for the D-backs. You look at the bullpen, as I just said, 3.4 ERA, and that's with a 10.8 ERA from Paul Sewald. So take out Paul Sewald. Think about how nasty then that bullpen has been in the month of July. Look at the rotation. That is now the biggest area of concern I have. I feel good about the lineup. I feel good about the bullpen outside of Paul Sewald. But the rotation now, when I think about it, it is the biggest area of concern. It is the biggest wild card to this D-back second half. It is the only area where I don't feel 100% confident in right now because, like I said, if the season ended today, the D-backs own a wild card spot and they would be in the postseason. But also, if the season ended today, the rotation is currently not fit for the playoffs. As much as I love Ryan Nelson and the Yilbert Diaz's, do I trust them in the postseason? I don't know. I think I trust Ryan Nelson more than Jordan Montgomery right now. That's kind of the crux of this argument as well. Zach Gallen just finished the month of July with over a 5.2 ERA. And that's with the good start against the Nationals most recently, right? That's with his good finale against the Nationals. He still had a 5.1 ERA in the month of July. So you need to get Zach Gallen cooking again. And hopefully he can build off the momentum that we saw from him in the finale. Jordan Montgomery over a 7 ERA in the month of July. That's not too good either, right? Most of the rotation is still hurt. And who knows when they will come back, right? And when they do come back, are they going to look healthy immediately? Are they going to be effective immediately? Like, that's why this rotation is the biggest area of concern for me right now because of the postseason start today. I don't feel good about Zach Allen. I don't feel good about Jordan Montgomery. And then there's no Merrill Kelly. There's no Eduardo Rodriguez. The D-backs' biggest focus for the rest of the season should be figure out the closer with Paul Sewald. And then number two, get this rotation together. You need Zach Allen to get back on the bump. Zach, we need you to lock in, become the ace that we know you are, and get back to what we've seen. Brendan Pfaadt, you're good. Keep doing what you're doing. Jordan Montgomery, right now, until Kelly and Erod get back and prove themselves, like this is a period where you have to prove yourself, Jordan Montgomery. Right now, Ryan Nelson's pitching great. And for Jordan Montgomery, who's been awful for the D-backs this season, it's a conversation. If there is a healthy Kelly, a healthy Erod, healthy Gallen, and a healthy Fott, and all four of those guys look good, that number 5 starter will come down to Monty or Ryan Nelson. And right now, Ryan Nelson is winning that job. But then you also have to question, is Kelly and Erod going to come back and immediately be good? Because if they're not going to be, then maybe Jordan Montgomery does stay in the rotation. Like, that's why there's so many question marks surrounding this rotation right now. With the health, with the play, this rotation, biggest concern for the D-backs. I do like the spot starters right now. The Diaz's, the Ryan Nelsons, like all of them are pitching pretty well for the D-backs. And I do like that for a more long-term play. But for this season, in terms of the D-backs' chances of winning the World Series, the rotation has to get healthy and they have to start peaking as we enter the playoffs, right? They need to start picking it up as we enter the playoffs. I think Brandon Pfaadt's going to continue to emerge in the second half of the season. And you pray a Zach Allen can start to emerge as he gets healthier off the injured list. You pray that he gets better the second half of the season. And then Jordan Montgomery, Merrill Kelly, and Erod, I have full confidence in Merrill Kelly coming back and being good. So right now, my 1, 2, 3, Gallen, Kelly, Fott, I feel good about that. Then you just pray between Monty and Erod, you just need one of those two guys to hit for the postseason. And then you could do the other one as your number 5 starter for the regular season or stick with Ryan Nelson. But For the playoffs, we need either a Gallon, or excuse me, for the playoffs, we need either a Monty or Erod to hit in the second half of the season so the D-backs can have their playoff rotation. And one other thing we haven't really discussed on this podcast, when we'll talk about this later on a podcast because we'll really have to dive into the topic. But eventually, when Erod and Kelly comes back, like the D-backs are going to have to get rid of two pitchers on this team, and it's easy to say, okay, option Diaz, but then what do you do after that? Do you demote a Ryan Nelson? Do you maybe like DFA a Paul Sewald and then put like a Jordan Montgomery in the bullpen, or put a Ryan Nelson in the bullpen? Like the D-backs are going to have to make some decisions with the pitchers on this roster once the rotation gets healthy. But that's step number one. Get their rotation healthy and get everyone playing good baseball, because you have to figure out over the next couple months who your playoff rotation is going to be. The D-backs do not have that figured out right now. Gallon and Fott are two locks because they're healthy. I feel like Kelly will be a lock once he gets back and healthy, but he's probably going to be coming back the latest of the injured starters. So that's why there are just so many question marks up in the air. That's why this D-backs bullpen is the biggest wild card right now. I feel good about the lineup. I feel good about the depth in the bullpen. The D-backs rotation has the pieces to be there for a World Series team, but right now they're not there. They're not healthy. They're not healthy, and they're not playing at their absolute best. So the rotation is the biggest wild card, and hopefully it comes around in the second half of the season. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.